morning. Thank you very much, Malcolm. Today I want to speak about a case study that a lot of people have been talking about it and has been studied to death, it seems. But I want to go beyond the more traditional analysis and talk about the consequences in general, both for Germany and for other countries, because I think that the way that we think about nuclear is not, we don't think about nuclear power in terms of systems. Most people will talk to you about LCOE. Sometimes we will try to analyze the whole systems cost, but there are many implications of nuclear power that have consequences beyond energy and electricity, and these impacts are not currently calculated in the economics of nuclear. So I want to use the case of Germany to highlight this. And yes, as Carl says, we need cheaper reactors. We also need better financing. We need better policy and regulation. But even without all of these improvements, nuclear power is still very valuable. And what happened in Germany gives us hints of that. So the presentation is nuclear power. It's a missing piece in the German energy puzzle. And this is, well, let's talk first about finally the end of the denial. Anyone who has been working on this subject and doing research and activism, we know that there is a constant battle of he said, she said. No, Germany has decreased the emissions, Energiewende works great. There's a lot of denial, and some experts have their numbers, I have my numbers. But in January this year, finally, Chancellor Mertz admitted something that many of us have been saying for years, that shutting down nuclear power in Germany has been a serious strategic mistake. And one of the narratives that now is becoming prevalent again has been, well, yes, okay, coal has been preserved unnecessarily, but they didn't know that. They really were expecting that if the Energiewende will substitute nuclear power and help them to decarbonize. But we do have a smoking gun, and these are official documents, official correspondence between Minister Sigmar Gabriel and the Swedish Prime Minister in 2015. What happened? Vattenfall was trying to get rid of investments in Germany and on coal facilities, and the minister sent this beautiful letter that is our smoking gun. Do I have a pointer here? Yeah. With this key sentence: we also strongly believe that we cannot simultaneously quit nuclear energy and coal-based power generation. So what happened was not unexpected. This was totally expected. This was planned. And it is not possible to say that they had the best of intentions, that they just made an honest mistake, when in 2015, official communications from German officers said this. So I want to be very clear that a lot of the consequences that I'm going to be talking about were expected. Were they worse than they expected? Well, maybe. But they are not unexpected, and this was not an honest mistake. They knew that coal would be preserved. And a lot of this talk, the core of the talk, is this report that we drafted with our wonderful friends from WePlanet. We released this report last fall, and we released it at the same time that one of the cooling towers in Germany was demolished. And we tried to quantify what were the actual consequences of this policy decision in terms of carbon emissions, in terms of human lives, in terms of human health, and in terms of economics. So let's start with before. In 2011, when the first batch of nuclear power plants were shut down right after Fukushima, 22.6% of electricity in Germany came from nuclear power. Currently, it's 0%. And there were around 19,000 megawatts of capacity that were running at that time, and that were removed between 2011 and 2023. Currently, about 30,000 megawatts of coal capacity are still online. So, but these are only capacity numbers. We need to remember that nuclear power has a much higher capacity factor than any other generation, electricity generation sources. And you can see that compared with coal, it's much higher. So when you actually compare, not capacity, but generation, the numbers are not that different. In 2010, nuclear power generated 133 terawatt hours in a year. In 2023, coal generated 124 terawatt hours. So it's comparable numbers. So at a very rough level, if Germany had kept their nuclear fleet as it was in 2010, they could have completely retired coal. But when we see these numbers in aggregate in a year, it's not really the right resolution. Why? Because load and generation are dynamic. It's not the same amount of electricity that it's generated and consumed in the middle of the winter that in a nice summer day. It's not the same amount of electricity that gets consumed during the evening when people are at home, when the lights are on, that in the middle of the day. So the right resolution for analyzing this, it's at the hourly level. And when we zoom in, we can, we did an exercise. In the data set that we have at the hourly level, which starts in 2015 until 2023, we pick up the day in which the generation from high carbon electricity sources was the lowest. And why is there a treadmill here? Because what we're going to see is an example of what we call treadmill decarbonization, in which, yes, you add a lot of low carbon renewables to the grid, but if at the same time you're retiring nuclear, which is also low carbon, the net effect is you're moving a lot, but you're remaining in the same place. So we took the day in which the generation from, the day and the hour in which the high carbon electricity generation was the lowest in all of our data set. So it's the perfect day, it's ideal conditions, and even so, the generation from high carbon sources was still higher than what was lost since 2015. What is this telling us? That even in the most optimal conditions for renewables, the loss of nuclear, it's still causing a big damage. And I want to make a comment here that there's a lot of playing with definitions and trying to cover their posteriors, talking about renewables. But if we care about climate change, the criteria is not renewables or clean. The criteria is carbon emissions. And when we're burning biomass, it still generates CO2. So that is the criteria that we're using here, not just fossil fuels. So if you invest 600 billion euros getting rid of high carbon sources, then this is the metric that we need to use to analyze the performance of that policy decision. And nevermore, why? It's because even in the best of cases, the lowest electricity generation from high carbon sources, it's never lower than what we lost. So even in the ideal conditions, we still will need nuclear. And this facility that we see here is Datan 4. It's the newest coal generation facility in Germany. It was connected to the grid in 2020. And here is a comparison of the generation by Datan 4 compared to the 3 nuclear power plants that were shut down in 2023. So if they had preserved any of these 3, even only one, it would have been enough to shut down completely Datan 4. So again, we have a conscious policy decision that even if they say they care about climate, they still will rather run coal power plants rather than keep low carbon nuclear power running. And one of the most common arguments, again, we're still playing with definitions and numbers, is like, well, yes, it was necessary because it replaced 3 other plants that were all on the same site, Datan 1, 2, 3. But turns out that the capacity of Datan 4 is 3.4 times higher than the plants that it replaced. So again, this is a policy decision, a plant that was started to be planned in around 2010, 2011, and it was completed in 2020, sorry. That could have been avoided with a more sane energy policy. And these are now, we're going to talk about the actual consequences. And these are the yearly emissions caused by not having nuclear, and that could have been avoided if the equivalent amount of coal will not have been burned. So in total, from 2011 to 2023, Germany emitted 730 million tons of CO2 that would not have been emitted had nuclear been preserved. Why? Because coal is fully dispatchable. So if these nuclear power plants would have been running, there would not have been the need to keep these coal plants running even at the hourly level. And when we talk about deaths and serious illness and minor illness, when we burn coal, we are not only generating CO2, we are also generating a number of other pollutants that have health effects, and because they kept running these coal power plants, turns out that an estimated of 19,000 people died earlier deaths than otherwise, and 177,000 have serious illnesses, and 10 million of cases of minor illness, respiratory illness, caused by the air pollution. And again, let's talk about other pollutants, not only CO2. burning coal produces sulfur oxides, nitrous oxides, particulate matter, and mercury. I want to highlight specifically mercury because running coal more than necessarily, if they had kept nuclear going on, generated 4 tons of mercury in Germany. So there's a number of other pollutants and a number of other health effects that currently are not considered in policy. And something that is worth highlighting is that I think that we all have heard the recommendation to pregnant women not to eat fish because of the mercury content that could affect the child. And where is this mercury coming from? Mostly from coal, from the byproducts of electricity generation through coal. So when we try to put this in perspective of comparing the worst nuclear accident in history, Chernobyl, with the results of running coal for longer in Germany, the worst case scenario of WHO in 2005 is under 5,000 dead people. The number of people who died because of this policy is nearly 20,000. So business as usual in one country is more than 4 times deadlier than the worst accident in the history of humankind for nuclear power. Think about it. And because they burn more coal and more natural gas, that means more carbon emissions that need more carbon allowances that need to be paid into the ETS. This is the cost of every year of this unnecessary generation, for a total of 57 billion euros, approximately. So continuing burning coal and burning natural gas because we're afraid of nuclear cooties had a cost for the German ratepayer $57 billion. So please don't ever tell me again that nuclear is too expensive. It also has other effects. This is something that looks like from a dystopic science fiction movie, but these are the mega mining machines they had in the village of Lützerath that was completely razed. And they even arrested Greta Thunberg, not once, but twice. And something that really should give us pause and perspective is that a lot of people think that Greta is too extremist. Greta is on the record in 2023 saying that nuclear power plants should continue, that it was not a good idea to shut down nuclear power. So the German government is more extremist than Greta Thunberg. And what is the next move of Germany? What are they going to do? Well, they tried to get approval from the European Commission for 20 gigawatts of new gas power. That was denied. They were told that only 10 gigawatts, 12, will be allowed. I think it ended up being 10 rather than 12. Asterisk, no. This is not really natural gas. This is natural gas that facilities that can also burn hydrogen. I don't know, I'm not an expert. If anyone here is an expert, maybe they can tell me they can tell me and let me know if there is any technology on this planet that can provide the amount of hydrogen that Germany will need for running 12 gigawatts. There is no such technology. So this is just lying through the teeth, saying, oh, yeah, hydrogen. Well, they know that for the foreseeable future, it's just going to be natural gas. But again, remember, we have 30 gigawatts of coal running. They got approval for 10 gigawatts of hydrogen. We still have a capacity gap of 20 gigawatts. So Germany has very limited options. Option one, continue running coal for longer. Option two, restart nuclear. Option three, deindustrialize the country even more. And so the time of uncomfortable choices is coming very soon. I am very interested in seeing what's going to happen, and I really hope that they finally understand that you cannot fight math, you cannot fight reality. And I want to talk now, if they decide to go for restarting nuclear power plants, according to Radiant Energy Group, 12,000 megawatts of capacity can be restored within a decade. And if an equivalent amount of coal or natural gas is shut down, the savings, because they're not going to have to pay or the cost of this carbon into the ETS, is 4 to 8 billion euros per year. So this is a number in abstract. What could the Germans do with all this money? Well, there are whole items in the German budget that could be paid with the income from just not having to pay for all this carbon. Support for school, university students, training programs, health, environment, sports, recreation, housing, urban development, and there are many other specific items of the German budget that could be, how we're doing, 10 minutes, okay. Okay. And these are not the only benefits. Just saving from not having to pay because of the carbon emissions is not the only benefits. We have been doing research, and this is data from Sweden, that shows that when you shut down nuclear power plants, Ringhals 1 and Ringhals 2, the volatility of the prices, this is southern Sweden, this is northern Sweden, before the prices were very similar, and after Ringhals 1 and 2 were shut down, the north and south prices decoupled, which is telling us that when you shut down nuclear power plants, even if you don't decrease the electricity generation just because you're introducing electricity from weather-dependent sources, you will have a lot more volatility and higher prices. So you save money because you have a more stable grid, more stable prices. You have healthier people, you have less people in the hospital, less people missing work because they are sick, and that's a benefit that also has to be quantified. So the decision of keeping nuclear power plants open has effects that go, oh, the video didn't work. Let me see. No. The decision of keeping nuclear power plants open has many consequences that go beyond electricity, that translate into healthier people, into better jobs, into less environmental pollution, and into more stable, less expensive electricity prices. So when we talk about nuclear power, we cannot say it's just, oh, it's too expensive in abstract, because when we quantify all these benefits, we find out that maybe nuclear is not as expensive as we thought, after all. Thank you very much.
One question meanwhile. Has anyone done any risk assessment of a hydrogen explosion at a hydrogen plant? I'm a nuclear expert, so we talk about risks about nuclear all the time, but a hydrogen explosion also can be very consequential.
That's an excellent question, and we haven't thought about it. We do have a case in California with one of the largest battery installations in the world in the central coast of California. We had a fire that caused a lot of contamination because of heavy metals, but because it was batteries and everyone loves batteries, who cares?
Yeah.
So my question is a little bit of a framing issue. I think, Germany often explains what happened to them as a failure of the green policies, of the environmental movement there. And I think, I'm very focused on policies and the politics. And a different way you can look at it as very successful politics from the coal industry. They've got what they want. And so my question is, thinking of Germany not as a failed clean energy transition, but as a thriving petrostate, what is the path forward for a country that has a very strong fossil fuel industry? Have we seen examples of other countries that had a lot of domestic fossil fuels that were able to get off? I don't know of an example, but I'm looking for policy recommendations. Or how do you change the politics in a country like that?
That's a great question, and I think that the closest example that we have of that is the United Arab Emirates that started a nuclear power program, and they are supposed to continue building more. And it's still very early, and they are a very atypical country. They are not like most of the other countries that do have oil, and that is certainly a very thorny issue. On the other hand, considering that the price of preserving the coal industry has been a lot of the other industry leaving Germany because electricity prices were too expensive, which is what has been going on in the last 3 years or so. This also can be a case study to understand that trying to preserve one industry has unintended consequences that can create more economic damage that we were trying to protect initially.
If I may maybe on that, there is another country that is looking at Saudi Arabia. But the thing is that those countries, the better countries, because the rest of the world is trying to decarbonize, so they know that they will have to change their business plan. And so they're trying to see to the future, and they're looking at nuclear, and also they're looking at nuclear to decarbonize the oil and gas industry, because we will always need oil for other things than transportation.
Let's not go so far, because Poland is the case with a lot of coal in Europe. Czechia is the case with a lot of coal in Europe. Bulgaria is a case. So look in Europe, and you will see a number of examples of the success of the coal industry.
But isn't that also because they don't have access to the Russian gas anymore?
That's the lucky thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we are reliant on Russian gas for too long time.
So I just want to say, first of all, excellent presentation, really great stuff, and congratulations to you and WePlanet for the report that you put out. I know it was out a while ago. I would say I know it was out there, the visibility of the report, but I think it could use still with a lot more visibility. And then just one quick comment. You talk about German deindustrialization. I think if you could add a slide on that. A lot of people are talking about that. There's not a lot of hard numbers that I see on that. So I would love to see that. It would be a great extra slide with some real numbers added to that.
The number that comes to the top of my head right now is that Germany is either the worst or bottom five has been bottom five economic growth for the last 4 years or so.
Thanks, Guido. One big paradox for me in their policy is that electricity generation from nuclear is prohibited, but not consumption, because they've been importing from France, and France is 70% nuclear, so there's a huge paradox there. But back to the industrial thing, one thing that we're trying to show Australia is use Germany as a case study in terms of what happened when they tried to reduce emissions and it backfired. But the thing that it has to convince the public is also the industrial linkages of that, because we are using manufacturing in Australia because of the prices of electricity. So perhaps the next step for you is to do a study on how that affected industry, like we said, jobs and everything like that, if you haven't done it yet.
Yeah, part of what we're trying to do is trying to quantify some of the effects. Like right now, we're pretty much certain that shutting nuclear power plants increases volatility and increases prices. How much? We still don't have a number. And then once we have those numbers, you can model a bit more accurately if the price of electricity increases X euros per kilowatt hour, what will be the effect in Y industry.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
For more questions, there is a lunch.